Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really tearing into a stack of notes here.
Yeah, fresh stuff.
Straight from a Chicago AI Mastermind session, May 23rd, 2025. And this isn't just, a dry recap. It feels packed with insights on how people are actually using generative AI.
It really is. I mean, the notes give us a pretty clear view, I think, of where the rubber meets the road with this tech.
Right.
Moving it out of the purely theoretical and, well, into how it's being applied practically.
Absolutely. So our mission in this deep dive, we want to take these notes, unpack what generative AI is, really see how people are using it right now.
In the wild.
Yeah, in the real world.
Yeah.
And crucially, figure out how you move past just kind of playing around with it.
The novelty phase.
Exactly, to making it genuinely useful.
And the source material itself frames it so well. It says, prompting is only the beginning. Generative AI becomes powerful when it moves from novelty to utility.
That's it.
That's the core idea we really need to explore, isn't it? How do you make that shift from something cool you tinker with to something essential you can actually rely on?
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. Get really clear on the fundamentals. What is generative AI? And maybe just as important, how is it different from the AI we've sort of heard about for years?
Yeah.
Because that distinction feels key.
It's absolutely the central starting point. So generative AI, it refers specifically to systems designed to create or generate entirely new outputs.
New stuff.
Yeah, new stuff. You give it some data inputs, and using these, complex models, it generates new content. Could be text, images, audio, video, even code. They call these different modalities.
Okay, modalities.
Yeah.
So it creates new content. How does that stack up against what we might call like traditional AI or standard machine learning?
So traditional AI, it's typically focused more on analysis, classification, prediction based on existing data and rules.
Okay.
Think about systems that spot fraud by finding weird patterns in transactions.
Right. Okay.
Or AI that approves loan applications based on set criteria. Or even just image recognition that identifies, a cat in a photo. It works with data that's already there to recognize, categorize, or make a decision.
So traditional AI understands and acts on information that already exists.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And generative AI, it uses what it learned from these massive diverse data sets to predict what comes next.
Prediction.
Yeah, to create something new. The next word in a sentence, the next pixel in an image, the next note in a melody. It's fundamentally about synthesis and creation.
That's a really helpful distinction. I saw in the notes they used a nice analogy for this difference.
They did, and it's a good one. If traditional AI is like a calculator precise, designed for specific computation and specific tasks, then generative AI is more like a creative partner. It's built to sort of collaborate with you, produce novel output you might not have created alone, or, certainly not as quickly.
That calculator versus creative partner thing, that really clicks. And understanding that core difference creation versus analysis that feels absolutely critical for figuring out how to use this tech effectively, right? How to actually integrate it.
So it changes everything, how you interact with it, what kinds of problems you can even think about solving with it.
Speaking of problem solved, the notes had some great examples. GenAI being used across those different modalities you mentioned shows it's not just theory anymore.
Not at all. I mean, text generation is everywhere now, right? GPT models like GPT-4o, people are using them for drafting emails, planning projects, summarizing really long documents. For images, you've got these things often called diffusion models. Basically, they build images pixel by pixel from a text description, used for stuff like brand design concepts or creating visual storyboards super fast. Think Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion, tools like that.
So those image models, they aren't just finding existing pictures online. They're like inventing new ones.
Exactly. Totally new images based on the patterns they learn from looking at millions and millions of other images. And it goes beyond images, too. The notes mention tools like Suno, generating music tracks.
Music, huh?
Yeah. And Sora for creating quite realistic video scenes just from text prompts. Plus AI assistants like GitHub Copilot helping automate writing code.
Right, the coding assistants.
Even 3D models, virtual environments being generated for things like architecture or video games. The breadth is really expanding.
That's the capability list, sure. But what really brings it home are those specific examples from the people actually in that mastermind session. Joe had a great one, didn't he? about summarizing legal docs.
He did, and it's a perfect illustration of that shift, novelty to utility. He's using GPT and his operations team to summarize these dense legal regulations. He actually said, we're feeding regulations into GPT to get the summary version. That alone saves us hours.
Hours. That's real tangible value, a direct time saver.
Absolutely.
And Dennis, he had that interesting insight about getting better search results with tools like ChatGPT compared to, say, Google.
Yes, and he really hit on why. It's the AI's ability to understand context. Traditional search relies heavily on keywords, right?
Yeah, mashing words.
But models like ChatGPT use what's called semantic understanding and contextual inference.
Okay, hold on. Semantic understanding, contextual inference. For someone who's not, deep in the AI weeds, what does that actually mean in practice?
Good question. Think about asking a question. Google might look for the exact words you typed in.
Right.
ChatGPT tries to understand the underlying meaning, the intent behind your words, and how they relate to each other in that specific context.
Intent.
Yeah, it's less about just matching keywords and more about grasping the actual concept you're trying to get at. Dennis put it really well. ChatGPT gave me better results than Google, not because of the keywords, because it knew what I meant.
It understood his idea, not just the literal words he used.
Precisely. The nuance.
Okay, that makes sense. So we know what GenAI is. We see its potential. We see real examples. The next big question is, how do you harness that power consistently, reliably? And this is where prompt engineering comes in. The notes had a lot on this.
They really did, and honestly, this is probably the most crucial bit for moving towards real utility. Prompting isn't just, typing a question into a box.
No.
The notes really emphasize it's about giving structured instructions.
Structure. Because if you want consistent, repeatable results, your input needs structure too.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like the path from novelty to actual utility.
It absolutely is. And the notes highlighted two key frameworks people were using for structuring prompts, RTF and Cote.
Okay, RTF. That stands for Role, Task, Format.
Right.
So you tell the AI who it should act as its persona, like act as an expert marketing copywriter.
Mm-hmm.
Then you give it the task. Write 3 catchy headlines for this blog post. And finally, you specify the format. Provide the headlines as a simple bulleted list.
Exactly. Clear roles, clear actions, clear output structure.
Okay, and the other one, COTE.
COTE is context, objective, task, example. So you provide background context. This blog post is about the basics of prompt engineering for, say, small businesses.
Got it.
You define the objective. I need headlines that will grab the attention of busy entrepreneurs scrolling quickly.
Okay.
You state the task again, write 3 headlines, and then, crucially, you might give an example of the kind of tone or style you're looking for.
Like, example headline, boost your biz with AI, 3 simple prompt tips. Something like that.
Perfect. That gives it a clear target. Using these frameworks, RTF or COTE, it just forces you to be clearer in your own head first.
Yeah, you have to define the AI's perspective, exactly what it needs to do, how you want the result delivered, and maybe even give it a sample to learn from right there in the prompt.
And the key insight here really is that mastering these kinds of structures, it elevates prompting from just like guess and check.
Right, throwing things at the wall.
To a repeatable, reliable process. It lets you steer the AI much more predictably towards the specific output you actually need for your task.
Makes sense. But even with these nice frameworks, Eric raised a really important warning sign, didn't he?
Yeah.
About prompt bias. What was his point there?
Yeah, that was a critical point. He highlighted how subtle assumptions that you bake into your prompt, even unconsciously, can unintentionally shape the AI's output. So it ends up just mirroring back what you kind of subtly suggested rather than giving a truly objective response based on its broader knowledge.
Wow.
He put it pretty starkly, actually. If you put in too much context in a way that already tells it what you're looking for, it just mirrors that back. It doesn't think for itself.
Yeah.
You're shaping the answer without realizing it.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder. The AI is reflecting the world, or it's training data anyway. But if your prompt has a slant,
it might just reflect your slant right back at you, amplified even. So a really critical takeaway from the notes is the importance of designing prompts where you can with a neutral, unbiased tone, as the recap summed it up. Designing prompts with an unbiased tone helps the model generate original responses rather than echoing assumptions.
like the model use its own brain, so to speak.
Exactly. Let its vast training data come through more neutrally without you accidentally polluting the well.
Okay, so you've crafted your well-structured, hopefully unbiased prompt. How do you take that and use it efficiently, like across a whole team or for tasks you do over and over? This is where scaling comes in, right?
Yes, definitely. You can't just rewrite perfect prompts from scratch every single time. It's not efficient.
No way.
The notes really emphasize turning prompts into repeatable assets. And Paul showed how using variables is absolutely key here. He said prompt templates scale when you use variables, not just text.
Variables. Okay, like in coding, where
Yeah.
you have placeholders you can fill in.
Exactly like that. So instead of writing a prompt just for one specific blog post headline, you create a template. Paul's SEO prompt template example was great. It uses variables like square brackets, blog text, and key phrase.
So a core prompt might say something like, act as an expert SEO analyst. Analyze the following blog post. Blog text. Now, generate 5 potential title options optimized specifically for the key phrase. Key phrase. Is that the idea?
That's exactly the idea. Then you just plug in any blog post text into the blog text variable and whatever the target keyword you want into key phrase.
Ah, okay.
The underlying structured prompt tells the AI exactly what to do with those inputs. This makes the prompt modular,
Yeah.
consistent, and totally reusable across tons of different content pieces without rewriting the whole instruction set every time.
That feels like a huge unlock for efficiency. And okay, when you start creating these templates, these variable-driven prompts,
Yeah.
the next logical step from the notes seem to be building a prompt catalog.
Yes. Think of it like your team's or your company's centralized library. It holds all your effective tested prompts, maybe useful formats, standard inputs.
So those RTF and COT frameworks we talked about.
Exactly. You store them there, probably with the variables ready to go. It's a shared resource.
What's the big payoff? Why bother building a catalog like this?
Well, the major insight here, I think, is that a prompt catalog transforms individual prompting skill, which can be kind of hit or miss, into a shared operational asset for the whole team or even the whole organization.
Okay, an asset.
Yeah. It standardizes your best practices. It saves immense amounts of time because people aren't constantly reinventing the wheel.
Right.
It drastically cuts down onboarding time for new folks using the AI tools. And it encourages continuous improvement because people can share what works, refine existing prompts, and build on collective knowledge.
So it moves from being about one person's knack for writing prompts.
Yeah, the prompt whisperer.
Right, to being about the team's collective intelligence captured, documented, and shared.
Precisely. It helps formalize and scale the art of prompting into something more like an engineering discipline.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about creating great inputs, the prompts. What about making sure the outputs you get back are actually good, especially when you start using these AI tools at scale?
That's a huge challenge, and this is where Dean introduced our really cutting-edge concept that was discussed in the session. Using AI itself to evaluate AI outputs.
Wait, hang on. AI, checking the work of other AI. How does that work?
Yeah, it sounds a bit sci-fi, but it's becoming a real practice. He's working on what he calls automated governance, or simply quality assurance for AI outputs.
Okay.
The core idea is you use a separate AI model, often one specifically designed or trained for evaluation tasks, to check the output generated by your primary AI model before you trust it or deploy it.
Yeah.
Dean explained it like this. I'm actually working a lot with evils. Basically, you evaluate one AI with another AI. It's testing outputs for quality, consistency, and bias.
So you might have AI model A generate, say, a product description, and then AI model B acts like a proofreader or a fact checker or maybe a bias detector on model A's work.
That's a pretty good analogy. It's an emerging but really important layer of quality control. As you scale up using generative AI, you need confidence in the outputs before they go out the door, right?
Absolutely.
An AI evaluator can check if the output meets specific criteria. Did it follow the instructions? Is it consistent in tone? Does it contain unwanted bias or potentially harmful content? And it can do that check much, much faster than a human could possibly review everything manually.
That's fascinating. Using the technology to sort of police itself in a way, and this rapid evolution, the need for these new concepts like AI evaluation, it really highlights the importance of ongoing learning in this field, doesn't it? The notes mention that too.
Oh, absolutely. As GenAI moves from tinkering into real operations, structured learning, and just as importantly, peer sharing become essential, it's not enough anymore to just casually experiment.
Right.
The notes mention members like Jennifer actively taking an AI product management course, Dean applying these AI evaluation techniques directly in his work, Paul pursuing a formal Google AML course. It shows a real commitment to building deeper, more rigorous expertise, not just surface-level familiarity.
It really underscores that staying informed, staying skilled, it isn't a one-time thing. It's a continuous process of study, practice, and sharing.
Exactly. The landscape is just changing so incredibly quickly. Continuous learning is pretty much the only way to keep utility ahead of novelty.
So if we pull all these different pieces together
Right.
into a kind of playbook for prompt engineering, let's say, the recap offered 5 key tips, didn't it, for structuring your whole approach?
Yes, and these are really excellent, actionable takeaways that came straight out of the session's discussion.
Okay, number 1.
Start with structure. Always use those frameworks we talked about, like RTF or CODI. They give you a clear foundation for your request. Don't just wing it.
Right. Number 2.
Be clear, not clever. Avoid overly complex language, jargon, or ambiguity in your prompt. Precise, direct instructions get much better, more predictable results.
Make sense?
3. Prompt. Like a playwright, this is a good one, give the AI a specific persona. Act as a skeptical financial analyst. Or imagine you are a 5th grader explaining this concept. It dramatically shapes the tone, the style, the perspective of the output.
I like that. Number 4.
Tune it like a prototype. Don't expect perfection on the very first try. Test your prompts, look at the output, tweak the prompt based on what you got, and document what you learn. It's an iterative cycle.
Test, tweak, document.
Yeah.
Got it. And the last one, number 5.
Control the environment. Use what are called system prompts whenever the tool allows it. These are like background instructions you give the model before your main user prompt. They set its overall behavior, maybe its constraints or its goals for the entire conversation. It helps set the stage.
Those 5 tips, they really crystallize that whole journey, don't they? Moving from just casual prompting to a deliberate, effective, repeatable process.
Yeah.
It's about using GenAI not just to generate something, anything,
Yeah.
but to generate the right something reliably for your specific goal.
Exactly. Moving from just exploring capabilities, which is fun,
Sure.
to actually using GenAI for creative problem solving, for achieving specific outcomes, whether that's a business breakthrough or a research insight, or just getting your work done faster and better.
And that idea, creative problem solving, that leads us right into what the notes said the next mastermind session is going to explore.
Yeah.
How can GenAI help you invent?
Yeah.
How can it help solve really tough, complex problems? And enable true co-creation between humans and machines?
Yeah, that's pushing the boundaries even further, isn't it? How do you even prompt for invention? It makes you think about those custom GPTs that were mentioned as resources. Things like innovation agent GPTs or financial agent GPTs.
Right, those aren't just general chatbots. They sound like they're specifically tailored, probably using sophisticated system prompts, maybe integrated with specific data sources, to act as specialized agents focused on very specific problem domains. They feel like examples of that operationalized, utility-focused GenAI we've been talking about.
Exactly. They show how these structured approaches can focus the AI's power on specific, complex tasks that go way beyond just simple text or image generation.
So, thinking about this whole deep dive, we've really journeyed from understanding that fundamental difference between traditional AI and generative AI.
Yeah, analysis versus creation.
We've seen concrete examples of its real-world application across all sorts of content types. And we've explored these essential strategies for making it genuinely useful and scalable. Things like structured prompting frameworks,
RTF, UTU.
using variable templates, building centralized prompt catalogs, and even that idea of AI-powered evaluation.
It makes it really clear, I think, that unlocking the true power of GenAI, it isn't just about having access to the latest models. It's critically about developing the skills, the structures, the processes to interact with them effectively, consistently, and reliably.
And, that raises a really interesting question for you, the listener, as you look at the sources you might be working with, whatever they are. How can you take these structured approaches, thinking about role, task, format, using variables, aiming for consistency, and apply them to extract new insights or solve specific problems using GenAI from your own material?
Yeah, think beyond just asking for a simple summary. How could you design your prompts differently? Maybe to get a specific type of analysis from your sources, or to generate alternative perspectives you hadn't considered, or maybe even identify hidden connections or patterns that you might have missed just reading through.
It really pushes you to consider the difference between just getting an output from an AI, any old output, and getting an output that is consistently high quality, reliable, and truly serve your specific objective because you used a structured, thoughtful approach.
Couldn't agree more. And as the recap from that session concludes, and it's a great way to end, stay curious, stay rigorous, and as always, build to learn.